Hello, welcome to the Zero Distance Awards 2021. I'm Stuart Craner, co-founder of Thinkers 50 and director of the Business Ecosystem Alliance. Thank you very much for joining us today. If you would like translation to Japanese or Mandarin, please click the language button at the bottom of the screen. So in 2020, the Business Ecosystem Alliance launched the Zero Distance Awards. The winners included Jaipur Rugs, Happy, Severstal, Nair Group, Fujitsu Europe, and Centigo. The awards identify and celebrate the work of organizations throughout the world in eliminating the distance between their employees, their operations, and their customers. We believe that ecosystems are a dynamic means of bridging the gap between organizations and their customers. Each year, we acknowledge the groundbreaking work of organizations in seeking to achieve zero distance. So we had some great entries for the awards this year, and we have got 8 fantastic winners. I'd like to just go through them now, let you know who they are. What's brilliant is that they are drawn from throughout the world, a variety of companies in different industries at different stages in their evolution. So we salute them all and are really delighted that representatives from so many of them can be with us today. So the winners this year, the first winner, it's not in alphabetical order, is Visi. Founded in 2010 with the aim of transforming the financial sector. It now has 60 employees organized around a simple golden rule: treat others as you wish to be treated yourself. Its management philosophy is also built on trust, radical transparency, elected leadership, and self-managing employees who enjoy zero distance to their customers. Visi believes that its clients are the best ambassadors for the company and its services. And we're delighted that we're joined by the company founder, Tom van der Lubbe, who will be talking to us in a while. The second winner of the Zero Distance Awards this year is Security Scorecard. Security Scorecard is a cybersecurity firm, 361 employees. It's the global leader in cybersecurity ratings, with tens of millions of companies continuously rated. The company believes that every organization has the universal right to understand their true cybersecurity posture. With that mission in mind, trust and transparency is key. Security Scorecard has the industry's first publicly available trust portal, providing transparency into its ratings methodology and delivering insights in how it aligns with industry standards. We've got a very short video from the General Counsel of Security Scorecard responding to the award.
Hi, my name is Sachin Bansal, and I'm the General Counsel and Global Head of Government Affairs here at Security Scorecard, a global cybersecurity ratings firm. We are so thankful to the Business Ecosystem Alliance for giving us this award. It's an honor to be recognized by this esteemed organization for our work with zero distance. In cybersecurity, zero distance strategies can't just end with a direct relationship between us and our customers. It has to extend to our customers' vendors and through their entire supply chain. We've seen painfully how ransomware, data breaches, and hacks can disrupt more than business as usual. It can disrupt the lives of every consumer. Food processors and refineries need to move their products to consumers, and pharmaceutical manufacturers need to ensure that patients get life-saving medications. Closing the distance to zero has to start with real, metric-driven visibility into the cybersecurity posture of the entire supply chain. That's why here at Security Scorecard, we believe that it's the right of every entity globally to not only know their cyber health in a measurable way, but the cyber hygiene of their business partners and their critical service providers. Together, we can raise the bar for transparency and security. Together, we can close the distance between us and the consumer to zero. And together, we can make the world a safer place. Thank you.
So that was Security Scorecard, our second winner of the Zero Distance Awards 2021. The third winner is Cipla. Indian company. At the beginning of the pandemic, the pharmaceutical company Cipla came up with the concept of healthcare superstars. Its aim was to reimagine the regular webinars conducted for doctors. Multiple surveys with doctors and internal stakeholders, as well as competition mapping, led to the genesis of healthcare superstars. The first 6 episodes helped Cipla reach more than 7.5 million people through social media, creating a database of over 11,000 doctors from more than 60 countries. The 4th company we're celebrating today is Make, based in Thailand, a professional services firm dedicated to literally changing how the world works. Make's operating principles include commitment to openness, equality, co-creation and co-sharing, the use of user-focused and independent teams, the systematic collection, storage and use of end-user data to increase value for end users, organizational design and processes that eliminate barriers separating employees from end users, and end-to-end accountability for the experience of end users. We're really pleased we're joined by Andreas Holmer, who we'll talk to later about what Make has been doing. The next company we're celebrating is Blue Cross Shield of Massachusetts. Got 3,800 employees. The healthcare and health insurance company has created its Wellbe Innovation Center, an ecosystem to proactively identify healthcare problems and opportunities. This is supported via a human-centered design approach, which includes direct and frequent consumer engagement when understanding problems, coming up with ideas, prototyping concepts, and testing solutions. We're delighted we'll be talking to Sukanya Soderland from the company in a while. And here's a taste of what Blue Cross Shield of Massachusetts have been up to.
We hosted a human-centered design boot camp where we invited internal associates and external organizations to partner together and collaborate on real-world healthcare challenges that we're facing as an organization that our members face every day. Once teams build and test their solution, they then pitched it in a really short time frame to a panel of expert judges, kind of Shark Tank style.
I think the biggest challenge for the teams coming into a contest like this was what to really expect. I know they came in blindly into our new innovation center, the Well, but they rolled up their sleeves, really came together as cross-functional teams, were out actually on the streets talking to consumers about their ideas, iterating, moving, evolving.
These types of exercises are like gold for our company because they get people out of their typical swim lanes, the typical ways in which we do things. They bring other people into the conversation who are coming at things from a different angle. They get us to think about broader possibilities, and most importantly, they get us to think about what the consumer wants.
So that's Blue Cross Shield of Massachusetts. The next company we're celebrating today is Resurgia Health Solutions from Atlanta, Georgia. Resurgia is on a mission to transform medical care and inspire hope by providing medical care to homebound patients in their homes. Resurgia's diverse team of clinicians and support staff swap roles to provide an opportunity for all to spend time with each other to learn about what they all do. Resurgia preaches context, not control. Its empowered team receives context behind decisions through quarterly updates, weekly metrics, and an open door to leadership. So that's Resurgia Health Solutions, and we're delighted we're going to be talking shortly to Kevin Charles and Mark Bradshaw from Resurgia, who've got up very early in the morning to join us. The 7th company we're celebrating today is Mammoth Sports from Switzerland. This outdoor company provides high quality products and a unique brand experience for fans of mountain sports around the world. It's focused on building digital ecosystems. It has forged strong partnerships and striven to reduce the environmental footprint of its products and processes. Mammoth's goal is to create a world moved by mountains. This covers both internal operations and co-creating with others to work to inspire staff and partners to come up with new ideas. We already have an interview with the CEO of Mammoth, Oliver Pabst, on the Business Ecosystem Alliance website. The final company we're celebrating today is Bosch Power Tools. Committed to empowering its users to build better lives, it started the biggest transformation in the company's history in 2016, with the goal of transforming the Robert Bosch Power Tools division into a user-centric organization based on agile principles. It follows a holistic definition of agility, embracing leadership, a collaboration culture, organization, processes and methods, as well as strategy, all underlined by a strong focus on communication internally as well as to and from customers. We'll be talking to Jochen Gürzer from the company later. So now is the time for conversation. I'd like to start first with Kevin Charles and Mark Bradshaw, who have joined us from Atlanta, Georgia, and they're from Resurgia Health Solutions. Mark and Kevin, thank you very much for joining us so early in the morning. Your time, we really appreciate it. I know at Resurgia, you talk about context, not control. Can you, Kevin, do you want to explain what that means in practice?
Sure. So if you think of healthcare or managing a healthcare entity, traditionally, clinicians will say they're often told what they need to do and given metrics to pursue. For us, we found it to be useful as part of how we want to build an organization to spend time giving context. And it's unusual in that we are providing a lot of business context to clinicians who are much more interested in understanding patient issues, clinical issues. And so we provide business context. We help our clinicians understand the insurance landscape. Blue Cross is here, and we want them to understand how these plans work because it helps them make better decisions for treatment plans and care plans for the patients they're serving. It also helps them to understand the challenges and the motives behind patients' interactions, because the system in the United States is a little bit fragmented, right? There's a payer, there's a provider, and then there's a patient. And so providing our clinicians the context, the understanding behind how does the payer work? What are the payers interested in? What are their metrics? What are their objectives? Aligning that with the patient's needs and objectives, and then with the company's needs and objectives, I think helps our clinicians be enabled and armed with information to make better decisions, because often they're making those decisions on the fly when in front of a patient. And so we try to give all of that context and put it into the whole so that they are well informed to make good decisions.
And Mark, you're a clinician. How does this change things from your perspective?
That's a very good question. Prior to founding Resurgia Health Solutions, like Kevin mentioned, my focus was really clinical. Throughout medical school, throughout training, you tend to focus a whole lot on the medical outcome. As we all know, it is impossible to separate particularly in a health system like ours, the financial impact and how that changes decisions for each particular patient. And so as we were sort of, learning Resurgia, learning the business landscape, I found personally that understanding, like Kevin said, how the patient's needs intersect with the insurance needs, and how ultimately the goals of getting the best care for the patients in the context of insurance interacts with our needs, changes our decisions. It impacts the types of studies we order. It impacts how early we choose to intervene. It impacts the medications we choose. And ultimately, essentially what you're trying to do, or what we've seen, is that it leads to a point where we're ultimately making the best possible decisions for patients in their particular context.
And doesn't it make your decision making becomes much more complicated there, doesn't it? Because you're bringing in, I mean, historically, as you said, the clinician deals with the patient, and it's kind of quite a narrow focus. But bringing in the context, you're adding a lot of complications.
Absolutely. But that is exactly what personalized medicine is, right?
Yeah.
It's the ability to figure out what the best decisions are. And each decision you make for a particular patient will likely differ based on the patient's context or circumstance. And so for us, given maximum context, including why or how decisions are made, allows us to make better decisions, or frankly, the best decisions for each particular patient.
So it's kind of more kind of holistic decision making.
Absolutely.
You're informed by the broader context. And
Mark, if I can give a quick example here, just to make this real. In the United States, insurance coverages may vary for hospital benefits, so inpatient benefits, versus going to a doctor's office, outpatient benefits. Same applies for medications. They're all on separate elements of an insurance plan. And so, this is actually a real case where a patient came to us really sick, and within 24 hours of us seeing that patient, I think we received probably about 10 phone calls and several messages through the patient portal. The typical guidance to that patient, given their conditions in a normal setting, would have been, hey, if these things are happening, you need to call 911, you need to go to the emergency department. Us understanding that patient's insurance coverage, he had a unique situation, and they had made a decision to purchase outpatient coverage. They did not purchase hospital coverage, so they had no coverage to go to the hospital. And so in a case like that, telling that patient to call 911 was absolutely meaningless, because they never would, because that phone call would net a $20,000 hospital bill, right? But understanding that then led our clinicians to have some different guidance and connect that patient to different resources to enable them to stay safe and get the care they need, while at the same time recognizing there were some limitations on what care they could access. And those conversations are not typical. When a clinician comes in, it's not their primary concern to understanding nuances of coverages and that sort of stuff. And so that made a real difference for that patient, because we were able to point them in the right direction and provide the right level of care.
And you also swap roles within the organization so you can better understand each other's roles. Have you experienced that, Mark?
Yes. As a founder of the company, I think I have a unique perspective. You know, when Resurgia was started, it was Kevin and myself only. And so, you know, typically in a traditional outpatient physician's office, oftentimes roles are siloed, right? So you have a secretary, they only do secretarial work. You have nursing staff or LPN staff. You have the physician, you have the insurance carrier, you have the insurance manager, you have the office manager. When Kevin and I started this, it was a team of two. And so we had the unique position of placing ourselves in roles that were not traditionally filled by a physician. So I was a secretary, I was a scheduler. And so there was a lot of value that we saw in understanding how the actions of one of those quote unquote silos impacts the decisions, the processes, et cetera, of other individuals who are equally connected, but in different ways to the organization, and thought that by having our clinicians, our office staff, our leadership swap roles so that we got perspective, it allowed each quote unquote silo to make better decisions, or again, the best decisions to impact the organizational structure positively.
So you're bringing kind of an entrepreneurial culture and maintaining and bringing it to healthcare, but kind of rather than a big organization structure.
Absolutely.
And what about self-managing employees? You also talk about that. How does that work?
So we tell our team that we really dislike the idea of having to micromanage anyone. We want to give you the context. We tell you what's going on and what actions we think need to be taken. We will provide metrics, and those metrics are typically going to be outcome driven. And we expect that we're going to hire well and then unleash those folks to go do the work that they're passionate about. Healthcare is one of those fields where a lot of the individuals who come to healthcare are coming here because of a sense of purpose and passion. And what we've tried to do from architecting this enterprise is to create this notion of, we won't micromanage you. In fact, if we're micromanaging you, that's probably a bad sign. But we want you to understand, align, and then manage yourself. And so what that has done for both Mark and I is free up our time. Our teams operate, they have their side meetings, small group discussions, they understand each other's roles, and then they're able to make really good decisions without a whole lot of management input and oversight. We do ask to stay aware, right? We ask them to manage up a little bit, just let me know what's going on. But for the most part, our smaller teams are able to operate fairly independently. And what I've found, and I'm really thrilled, in the last 2 years or so, it has really picked up momentum. But I think we are on that path to those teams really working fairly independently and making really good decisions. It's really rare that we have a misstep, but they are making really good decisions, which for us is a testament to the fruition of bringing to fruition all of those strategies of minimizing the distance between each other.
Where does it go next, Mark? I mean, I think traditionally the big challenge of these things, I mean, it's fantastic what you've achieved. Keeping it going, keeping that culture going and developing it is another challenge, isn't it?
It is. You know, the reality is, even with this award, we very much remain students of management, and it's really an ever evolving journey. And so I don't know that the same strategies that we have utilized and employed at this point will necessarily be applicable to the future. And so I think part of the concept behind having an open door policy is continually evaluating and receiving feedback from not just our patients, but our employees as well, and adapting as quickly as we can to try to meet those needs. So where we go is a hard question to answer, because that is highly dependent on where we are in the future.
Mark and Kevin, congratulations on what you've achieved, and congratulations on this award. Please keep us posted as your work develops. And thank you for getting up so early to join us this morning.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you very much. It's an honor.
So next, I'd like to talk to Sukiana Soderland, who's from Blue Cross Shield of Massachusetts in Boston. So she's also got up early-ish this morning. Sukiana, thank you very much for joining us. Blue Cross Shield had introduced a new Wellbe Innovation Center. Can you tell me about the genesis of that, and how is it different from what was there before?
Sure. Well, good morning, everyone, and so pleased to be here. So at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts, there was a decision made several years ago, about 5 years ago now, predates me, to develop a focused innovation center. And the intent behind that was a recognition that there's a vast degree of change occurring in healthcare, as you heard a bit about from both Mark and Kevin, particularly in the United States, and that the traditional status quo in terms of how healthcare operates is not serving our members as best as it could. And so the thinking was to say, where and how can we create a forum that engenders collaboration of ideas and action within the company and within the broader ecosystem in which we operate, of our members, our consumers, our patients, clinicians, and employers who are customers, and others, such that we can look at some of these big thorny problems, some of which Mark and Kevin referenced, from a holistic perspective, bring the user or the oftentimes the consumer or the clinician, and the human-centered design approach, bring them to the center, as opposed to having them be on the periphery or have them be an afterthought, and have them help co-design and co-create solutions with us.
And in practice, I mean, in healthcare, it always strikes me that the consumers don't necessarily know what's
Yes.
possible. It's like so many industries. I mean, your specialist expertise and knowledge and the fast changing healthcare environment means that consumers don't really understand, surely.
Indeed, which is why relying on traditional mechanisms, even like surveys, can be necessary but insufficient. And so that's wherein we found things like ethnographies, modalities such as ethnographies, and just talking to people, literally talking to people on the street. As you saw in the video, we do that quite often, can be incredibly helpful because we're really trying to fall in love with the problem and understand what the underlying needs are. And by understanding the needs, from there we can start to uncover and unfurl what the possibilities may be. And sometimes what we think, on the outside and at the outset might be the right answer doesn't end up actually working for consumers at all. On the flip side, sometimes things when you ask them, hey, would you be interested in this? And they say, no, you're my payer, you're my health insurer. I don't see you as having a role there. But then as you uncover the problem and you start to co-create with them, they say, oh, that would actually be very helpful to me.
But you're a much bigger organization than Resurgent, and there's a cultural challenge, isn't there?
Indeed.
I mean, Mark and Kevin talk powerfully about kind of the entrepreneurial genesis of what they're doing. You've got 3,800 employees. Changing perceptions and culture and habits is very difficult.
It is indeed. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts has been around for 80 years. We've been the market leader that entire time. We're not for profit. And we have, as you mentioned, 3,800 employees across 3 major locations. And so shifting culture is very tricky. We have a very service-oriented and mission-oriented employee base, associate base, which we're very grateful for. And there's also the sense of we've done so well doing what we've done in the way in which we've done it. So finding the right ways in which we can ignite people's excitement around change and a new way forward is really the trick. And one of the things we have done is with the WellBe team's use of the human-centered design approach is really bringing in as many associates as possible. We've had over 60% of our associates trained in human-centered design thinking. And what's most gratifying, as we try to do these train the trainers exercises, is it's starting to take hold. So it's not even always when the WellBe team is initiating major efforts. For example, we have a major effort around what we call patient-first healthcare and helping to guide and direct members to care outside of the hospital setting where appropriate. That's a very focused effort that we're working on with them. But then there are others where we hear from our associates that after they've done the training, they start to apply the thinking themselves. So I'll give you an example. Because we are so service-oriented, something like first call resolution in the call center with our member associates is really important. When people call up, sometimes frantic with a problem, because health insurance is very complicated, as you heard, we want to be able to answer that appropriately and demonstrate that we have our members' backs. And we already were at a very high level of first call resolution. We've won many awards and so forth. And every year we try to keep raising the bar. And the folks who run that effort decided they wanted to deploy the human-centered design thinking principles to determine what they could do to continue to further up their game. And they keep doing it. Each time we think, oh, well, we're now at a limit. We're not going to be able to keep improving. But they've deployed that and it's changed how they think about their internal coaching model, their staffing model, their talent retention and talent attraction models, and so forth. So that's just one example of ways in which the culture shift is taking hold.
And where does it go next? What have you got planned?
Oh, it's a great question because there's so much change happening in healthcare. And on the one hand, you can envision, as was referenced earlier, personalized healthcare where people can get right care, right place, right time, right way, and we can predict and prevent acute events before they even happen and help people live their their best life, right? That's the nirvana version in an affordable way. And yet we have also the reality that we sit in right now where there's so many parts of the system that are so broken. And if we can't work on those foundational elements, this nirvana version is nothing but a pipe dream. And so we're really trying to take a two-pronged approach, which is where and how do we help with the blocking and tackling of the needs in the system today? So there's something, for example, called prior authorization that people may be familiar with, at least in the States, with respect to healthcare, which is a very complicated process and frustrating all around for clinicians, for patients, for even the health insurance company. We are trying to find a way to streamline and automate that and get rid of it in some ways, sort of on it might look like. And that's something that doesn't sound very exciting, but actually takes a lot of waste out of the system. So we're doing things like that. And at the same time, we're trying to think next generation, what's coming around the bend, and what are some of the big eye innovation efforts and bigger bets that we can make to really help transform the way in which care is received and delivered.
So Kanya, thank you very much, and congratulations on the award and your fantastic work at Blue Cross Shield.
Thank you.
Next, we'd like to move away from America to Thailand, to Andreas Holmer. Andreas runs a professional services firm called Make, and Make is being remade. Andreas, over the last, how long's the process of transformation been going on?
Well, I guess it's an ongoing process in one way, right? We got our start in 2012 and has spent a lot of time experimenting with new and better ways of working. But January of this year marked the start of our adoption of the Rendenhöj organizational model, which has brought a new drive behind that work.
So can you mean the Rendenhöj model is the one used by the Haier company in China, which is the biggest white goods manufacturer in the world? So how do you translate what Haier does to what you do? What have you picked up from Haier?
Right. So Haier is obviously a very different company to Make. We have 80 people working at Make. Haier has 80,000 people. Slightly more. They're also a product company. We are a service company, etc. But there are a lot of similarities and inspiration that can be drawn from the Rendenhöj model, I think. Zero distance being one of the core principles, but also this notion of being human-centered and putting people first, and the focus on building ecosystems, which I personally find very, very interesting.
So what stage are you at now? Because it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, for sure. So for us, it's still very early days. Let me elaborate a little bit on saying that, look, just like Sukiana was telling you a few minutes ago, similar to Blue Cross Blue Shield, Make has been a practitioner of human-centered design for a long time. Design thinking and being design driven is sort of part and parcel with how we run the company, part of that process means leveraging human-centered design, co-creation, empathy in our daily work. So that's sort of the mindset that we came into the Rendenhöj transformation with. But what we're trying to do now is take that one step further and say that, okay, well, we want to be close with our customers, but we also want to make sure that our incentives are aligned to a larger extent, which means that we are reorganizing the organization in such a way that the people doing the work will have a share in the value that they create for their customers. The Rendenhöj model, the organization model that Haier has created over the past decade or two or three, allows us to do that. Now it's a rather a big initiative, obviously, but that's where we're going. We want to take that extra step towards self-direction and self-management.
What difference would your customers notice from what you've done?
Well, that's a good question. So as a professional services firm, a lot of time, and you know, I'm echoing what customers would tell us in you know, generally. You know, if you let's talk about contracting a little bit, not to get too geeky on you here, but in a typical scenario, you either do a fixed price engagement or you do a time and materials engagement, either of which is not unfair, but it skews the risk to either party. And what we're trying to define instead is a way to balance the risk more fairly, but more so also balance the profits, balance the value that you create, right? And reinventing the way work and contracting is done seems to be a very large undertaking for a very small company. Luckily, there is someone bigger like Hire who's actually done a fair amount of work in this department, and we're very happy to be able to leverage that in order to make sure that we are, you know, aligned and get paid for performance actually that we create for customers.
Where does it go next? What have you got planned for the next 6 months or year in the kind of transformation program or process?
Yeah, there's at least 2 parts to this, right? Step 1 has been to transform and reorganize ourselves internally. So we've implemented something that we call MOS, or the Make Operating System, which is a decentralized, self-managed way to organize ourselves that is inspired by some other well-known organizational operating systems on the market, such as Holacracy. So we're doing that, and that helps us build what we call an internal ecosystem that breaks down barriers and lets people move around between different functions. But more importantly, we are also now working to unbundle the organization into a set of micro enterprises, which is again the model that Hire has, where we are creating a venture program in 4 steps in which we will help entrepreneurs employees become entrepreneurs. So if they have a idea for a new business, we will help them achieve product market fit, and then we'll spin that off as a separate company and give them equity stake. That way they have a, you know, de facto share in the value that they create, right? Because they have P&L responsibility and complete autonomy, while still being able to leverage Make as a backer.
Have you had any challenges internally? Because it all sounds fantastic, but you're asking people to take on a very different way of working, which is a big challenge, isn't it?
For sure. But clearly, some of these things are not for everyone. I think lucky for us, we've been working this, you know, we've had this kind of working process for a long time, and so it's maybe less of a jarring experience for people. But even so, you know, the introduction of this venture program that we simply call Make Ventures got very got some people very excited, and a fair amount of people was like, oh, okay, well, I'll wait and see. You guys get going, and I'll see what you come up with, and then maybe I'll go in. But it's the standard early adopter kind of mindset, right? You have to cater to those who are more willing to take risks and show everyone else that this actually works, and this is how we do things, and this is what's in it for you. And that's what we're doing, and it's still very early days. So we are still setting up the venture program. We have a couple of micro enterprises in the works that will hopefully be spun up in the next couple of months. And the end result here is to really become a boundary-less organization and create an ecosystem of independent teams that work with other organizations, both inside and outside Make, which is super exciting.
Thank you very much, and Andreas. Congratulations to Make. There's great session with Andreas, which we recorded yesterday, which tells you more about the interesting things they're doing at Make. Thank you once again, Andreas. And now we will move over to Switzerland, to Tom van der Loop. Tom is founder of Visi Mortgages, which is actually a Dutch co-founder, which is actually a Dutch company, though Tom's speaking to us in Switzerland. And Tom, I mean, you started the company in 2010, just after the financial meltdown, which doesn't seem to me to be a very good time to start a mortgage company. But can you explain what your thinking was when you started?
One remark first, companies who start after crisis or in times of crisis do much better than companies who start in good times. So perhaps that's a good starting point. We started actually because we thought, okay, we have to change this financial sector, and we used to work in the financial sector 10 years. And then the positive thing about the financial crisis was that in the Netherlands, the regulator reacted, and it was forbidden to take kickbacks anymore. So it's a fee-based advice business, which really helped to transform. So we are paid by the clients and not paid by the bank, and that was our starting point, so to say.
And your business is built on a golden rule.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what the golden rule is, and how do you make it a reality?
Yeah, the golden rule is something which you find all over the world in religion or in philosophy, and it just means treat other people like you wanted to treat it yourself, and everybody understands this because it's the rule which works in your own family, with your friends, with your neighbors, hopefully. So it's, I think, the basic principle of living together. And our starting point is, why would a company or the place where you meet to do business work in a different way?
So how does this manifest in reality then? How does that change the way your employees behave, do you think?
I think it's something which it's not so exceptional. So I think a lot of, for instance, family businesses or small businesses just work in that way by treating people well. So that, let's say, we have the principle that we put our own people first before our customers. And if we care about our people well, then they will take care of our customers. And the funny thing is that we are a business to consumer company, but it's even on our website. So the customers see that they come second after our employees. And to take a very practical example, we don't advise during the weekend. And if let's say clients don't like this, we just tell them, you can also go to the dentist during the week. So if you want to take a decision on the most important financial decision in your life, it's also possible to solve this. We hope for you, because our people also have their families or their private lives.
But at the same time, you believe that the clients are the best ambassadors for the company and its services.
The funny thing is that by putting our own people first, you have a double reaction. On the one hand, our people just care for their clients, and they have to decide for themselves. So the idea is, as an advisor, just imagine you would be the client and then help this client as good as possible. And with this approach, we have the highest client satisfaction in the Netherlands. So the funny thing is that sometimes we're interviewed in podcasts or magazines whatsoever, and it's always about putting clients first, etc. And they said, no, we're putting our own people first. And then the last time I had somebody who just looked it up on Trustpilot and saw that we had 9.8 out of 10, and he said, oh, I just see you have the highest client satisfaction. So it's not a contradiction, but there are a lot of discussions which take place, which they think there is a contradiction. It's like, let's say, laying off people in times of crisis. People who don't lay off people in times of crisis do better, also from a shareholder value perspective. So we have a lot of discussions where we talk about contradictions, but there aren't any contradictions at all.
What about elected leadership? What does that mean in practice?
Yeah, the funny thing is that it's very old. So I had a discussion with a professor for organizational design, and he said, "Oh, that's very innovative." And I said, "No, it's not so innovative." I have to add, I'm a historian, and I said it's 2,500 years old. It's Polis Athens, and the idea behind this is that the collective intelligence of a rotating system is much higher, and there's a lot of research done on that. But we often search for principles, and it doesn't matter where they come from. So I actually think that if you talk about organizational design, it's much more interesting to watch, let's say, armies in the past, or ecosystems in nature, or governmental systems, or the European community, etc. Doesn't matter, or perhaps ants. So you can take just all the input from anywhere, but about leadership, it also has an aspect of the ego. So the real topic on the long run is, if you think that after having taken a lot of good decisions, you think you were the reason that all those decisions were good, that's the problem in the system itself. So by rotating this, you solve this problem. But that's something which is embedded in the way we build democracies. But I would always say, forget about the management literature and read Plato or Socrates or Stoic philosophers, etc., or read about self-organization principles in armies, etc., or Roman armies, and then you will find out that people were always dealing with the same problems.
You also talk about keeping it simple.
Yeah.
Which is, I think we'd all sign up for that, or many people would sign up for that, but in practice it's really difficult, because I mean, all the businesses we've talked about so far, especially healthcare, hugely complicated, and the finance industry is hugely complicated. So how do you keep it simple on a day-to-day basis? How do you cut away the clutter?
I really have to say I disagree. So I think that the basic rules of life, they're all simple, but what it makes complicated is to be very consequent on the implementation. So just take an example of decentralized decision making. Everybody understands in the end that if teams have responsibility for, let's say, recruiting, and those people in the team decide together who is able to join, that people feel much more responsible. That's just one very simple aspect. And if people share, for instance, the work, or decide together who's taking care of what part, and you have this collective responsibility, that's also stronger than the individual responsibility. Or peer-to-peer pressure is much stronger than vertical pressure. So I think these mechanisms from a scientific point of view are very clear, but then there is stuff around which disturbs these kinds of logic systems. It can be shareholder value capitalism, or short-term orientation of your investors, or whatsoever, but the basic principles, they stay the same.
Yeah. And how do you keep it going? How do you maintain momentum?
By asking all the time what people need, and then if you have an honest environment, but it's very complicated. It's like building an ecosystem. If you talk about nature, so a rainforest is very complicated, and everything is interconnected. So if you, for instance, want to create psychological safety, you do this by taking all the negative incentives out of the system. So for instance, we have fixed salaries. We have also fixed increases in salaries. And that's something which, let's say, in a lot of countries in the financial sector is not the case. So, but there's a lot of research done on psychological safety, Amy Edmondson, etc. So from a scientific or research point of view, there's not that much discussion going on. But I always wonder why this research is not implemented in much more companies.
Yeah, Amy Edmondson's book is called The Fearless Organization,
Yeah.
which I think would actually be a consistent theme through the organization we've talked with so far this morning. Tom, thank you very much, and congratulations on this award and your fantastic work at Visie. And Visie means vision in Dutch, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which is nice. So every time somebody says the name of your company, they're saying vision, which is
now, people always have to smile when we have conversations, because the word often is there in conversations. But that's correct. But thank you very much for the award. It's really beautiful to get it.
You're welcome, Tom. Thank you for talking with us today. So next, I would like to move to India. We've been through America, Thailand, Europe. Now in India with Cipla, Indian pharmaceutical company, and I'd like to welcome Devdutt Kaushal. Devdutt, thank you very much for joining us. Can you tell us about healthcare superstars?
Sure, Stuart. Good evening and good morning to all the people who are listening to us. And thank you for giving this platform. First of all, before I unveil what is Healthcare Superstar is all about, I would like to give a thanks to all my team, because a great product is the outcome of a great team. So there's a complete ecosystem which has developed this product, which is Healthcare Superstar. So I would like to thank my CEO, Mr. Nishant Saxena, heading international business, who had full confidence in us, because since the time COVID has come, digital is way of life, right? And everybody has their own understanding of digital, but we try and decode it well and try to add value to the product. So thanks to our CEO, my boss, Mr. Purnindu Seth, medical team, Dr. Weber, IT team, so that we ring fence the security with respect to data, and obviously my team marketing, which are part and parcel of the product, and also our stakeholders, be it customers or our in-country team and our B2B partners who took the product to different part of the world. So what is Healthcare Superstar? Now let me try and make it real simple. So continuous medical education is a thing which we usually do with the doctors for their continuous knowledge upgradation. But that was physical in nature before COVID happened. So the challenge was that how we can take this piece to the thousands of doctors sitting in different parts of the world by digital medium. And that's where this product comes, which is Healthcare Superstar. In a single day, we are able to connect different part of the world, different doctors on certain respiratory topics, because being a lung leader in respiratory, we wanted to make sure the education is simple, and it stands on two pillars. One is the knowledge, second is experience. Because today you will agree with me that webinar have become a commodity. Nobody stays on the webinar for 15, 20 minutes, they are just out of the piece. So we tried and made sure that the topics are relevant to the practice for the clinician, so that they hook for the content, high quality content. And from experience point of view, we try and add so many things with respect to different language, the flexi timing approach. And this came from the surveys when we meet the doctors, that what do you want? Because they are very busy. So they said that if the same show can be telecasted multiple times, so we had a flexi, telecast approach. So again, it's an experience and a digital engagement, because a lot of times this webinar become boring. So we had a lot of good engagement, which really hooked the interest of the audience. And we have that, full practice relevant content, which we say is knowledge based or meaningful partnership in practice. That's where the entire Healthcare Superstar stands upon. And going forward, I would say, as I said earlier also, so far in just 6 episodes, what we have done, we have got a tremendous reach of 1.5 million doctors connected, and we have almost 11,000 doctors watching this show. One thing which I wanted to share, apart from that, today webinars are happening, but they don't have a brand. Healthcare Superstar is that hook, that doctor perceive that this is one platform which decodes respiratory problem areas, and we cater those topics which are the most desired topic, and we try and reach out to them and try to decode with the best in the world. So be it in I would like to quote some names like ILD, COPD, asthma. So we get the best in the world. They give their opinion, case-based format, and then the audience from different part of the world get a chance to ask a question. So that talks about the global connect, and that's what is Healthcare Superstar is all about.
And what have you learned along the way?
What we have learned is we have learned continuously from our customers that how we can make it better and better. So episode after episode, we have tried and added newer and more features so that we get a larger reach. So like, let's say when we started with a simple language thing. We started with 5 languages. With flexi timing approach, we used to do 3. We started doing 5 shows in a particular day. Then we started having a social media reach. So each show we had some of the small upgrades done, keeping customer in mind, because there's no point of creating a product if your customer is not hooked. So it is a very tailored product which caters the need of knowledge of a busy clinician in anything and everything on respiratory.
And it's been described as the Netflix of healthcare.
Yeah, so that's the vision we have set forward. So we want to be the Netflix of pharma when it comes to this particular area, and we are working very strongly towards it. So far, we are done with 6, and we are riding momentum for the 7th one, which is lined up on 23rd of September.
So it's kind of continuing education, but creating a new ecosystem and new relationships with the clinicians in the field.
Absolutely. I would say it's a borderless connection of knowledge. So there's no border to India. We are open to the world, and everybody's joining the mission forward.
And the grounding for it, you spend a lot of time getting to know what the clinicians actually wanted or what they were experiencing at the time.
Right. So before we do anything, we have a set of team who eats out certain set of doctors and try to understand what is the most desired topic, what type of content they're looking forward to. So based on the data, we try and get this topic right, and that's what hooks the audience.
Devdutt, thank you very much for joining us, and congratulations on this award and what SIPL has done in connecting with clinicians. We look forward to, if it becomes the Netflix of healthcare, you'll have done very well, but good luck with that, and congratulations on this award.
Thank you.
And finally, last but not least, we come to Robert Bosch Power Tools in Germany and Jochen Gozer. Jochen, thank you for joining us. I mean, this is part of a big transformation, which began in 2016.
Yeah, before I start about that, Stuart, thanks a lot for inviting me, for receiving the award, and just talking listening to this great group of people that you have here. I think it's really cool to see what's going on around the world in very different organizations. Concerning our journey, I think, yes, we started 5-6 years ago to really question ourselves if we run the business the last couple of years or last couple of decades, if this is the right way going forward. The question I think you said at the beginning was really, how can we come much closer to our users? And with users, we really mean the people who use our tools, right? I mean, we have been educated and trained a lot to think about how we sell our tools to our retailers and they sell it to users, but we had much more interest now to get in direct contact with our users. That was the biggest thing. So
yeah, the aspiration is to become a user-centric organization. So
yes, exactly.
How can you go about that?
I think at that time when we started the journey 5-6 years ago, we really thought that we needed to have not this big master plan, not this thing on how to plan out things, and that's quite new for a Bosch German engineering company. I can say that as a German myself. It's more to have like the boldness and guts to say we don't know everything, but we really want to build on certain principles and values. And in the agile world, I think we found most of the commonalities what we want to share. And therefore, I think we started really to ask the questions: are we set up the right way? You know, theoretically, different departments working to get tools out of the system, of our system at the end. I think we really found that we faced a lot of interfaces along this user journey at the end, right? You have a marketing department, you have an engineering department, and it seems like the user chain is broken along this journey. And we flipped that upside down to say, no, we built business teams, purpose teams that are actually coming from very different backgrounds. So we take the original engineering home away from a German engineer or a marketeer from the US and say, no, you're in one team now. There's no going back to your functional department, but you are responsible to building products that are built for user needs and directly interact with the market and are measured also end-to-end responsible on the results that you're trying to achieve.
And what were the responses internally and from customers?
I mean, when you start that journey, I think there are many different aspects on how this journey is going. We intentionally didn't create a big KPI dashboard or whatever to track how this journey is going. We really tried to listen very carefully to what the associates are telling us. We get very good positive feedback on I mean, external websites, on internal associate surveys. And the biggest thing I usually ask my people is, do you want to go back to 6 years ago or 7 years ago? And the vast majority says, no way, please not. So I think that's one for internally, that we are on the right track, even though we have also some bumps along the road. When we look at the customer perspective, I think or the user, as we call them, it's really critical to have this direct user interaction. And I think people that are using our tools are really recognizing that. I mean, that's really good that we create user experience that is much more closely linked to what they are using the tools for, actually.
Yeah, so what form does that take, direct user interaction?
I mean, there's one thing where we get much more user testing and direct user interaction in the product development of our of our products. So that's, I think we totally changed our, I would say, products and services development framework to that. The second part is on how I mean, either the users can buy our products or we can get feedback from the users. I mean, yeah, we some of our retailers are going now, of course, also digital. We get much more interaction from users directly on 5-star ratings, 1-star ratings. So I think we have much more connectedness to get feedback from the users to say, you know what, this tool is great, but it doesn't work in these circumstances, or it's not very flexible at my workplace.
And Tom talked about a fearless organization. Does that ring a bell with you? Is that what you're trying to create?
There was a lot of connection when Tom spoke, like for the others as well. But I think this cultural aspect I mean, we are 20,000 people division within the 400,000 people Bosch corporate sector. So I think creating this or starting this journey on really a feedback culture to listen to each other across hierarchies, I think we really tried and have big support from our senior management team since the beginning and ongoing. But we also encourage a lot our regular associates to really give cross-hierarchical feedback. And I think that's a very big learning curve. I think we make bold steps, but it's a continuous journey. And one question which I'm refusing to answer is internally always, when were we finished? I think this is a journey that we try to keep on going. And I think if you develop in the right way, I think it's definitely a journey worth taking.
So you're in a process of perpetual transformation.
Yeah. That's the goal.
But isn't that a difficult message to sell? I mean, historically, companies have always said, well, we're going to do a 3-month change program, which I can see is easier to sell because you think, well, it's going to be finished in 3 months. My job might change a bit, but it's finished in 3 months. But saying perpetual transformation is a much more challenging message.
It's a much more challenging message. So you're constantly trying to be very close to the organization, to the senior management, but also to the associates. On the other hand, if you started with I would say, an iterative agile mindset at the beginning, remember I said we didn't have a master plan at the beginning. It also helps you a little bit along the journey, right? Because you're trying to have very iterative approaches and you can always direct yourself into a different direction when you see the market, the business, the associate circumstances are changing. So I think, yes, you need to build a lot of trust with your stakeholders, that they are relying on that you always see the next things that we might need to address. But I think this agile starting with not having this end product in mind, how our transformation can be finished, I think is at the end also helping us at the moment.
So making up as you go along is actually
yes.
part of the art.
Yeah, I mean, I also don't want to be philosophical, but that's also our personal life usually, right? I mean, you don't make the plan when you're 20 and then you follow it through until you're 80. There are some things along the journey, family, kids, new boss, new job. I think we always learn to adjust in real life. So why do we treat sometimes business as different, right?
Yeah. And how has it changed your job?
Well, it changed my job dramatically because I think I'm not for the first time, but I'm really for the first time in a job which I love 150%, because it's like really helping us to go along the journey, to really have not a transformation focus because there's a new legal system coming up or a new IT system, but purely because we say we need to be bold to change how we work and how we run our organization. So I try to do it with my team to say, take them more into responsibility, step back as a leader to say, I don't know everything. You can always rely on me if there's an issue, but be bold to also make some move ahead.
Jochen, thank you very much. That was Robert Bosch Power Tools. I would like to thank everyone for joining us this morning. Kevin Charles, Dr. Mark Bradshaw from Resurgia in Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you very much. Sukyanya Soderlund from Blue Cross in Boston. Thank you very much and congratulations. Andreas Holmer from Make in Bangkok, Thailand. Tom van der Loob from Visi in Netherlands by way of Switzerland. Devdutt Kaushal and Sipla in India, and Jochen from Bosch Power Tools in Germany. Congratulations to you all, and thank you for sharing your inspiring stories of putting zero distance into practice. We look forward to keeping up to date with what you achieve in the future, and good luck, and thank you to you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
very
very
much.
much. It's an honor.
Thank you.
Really an honor indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye. Have a nice weekend.
Care everyone. Bye.